Welcome to the Astute Engineer. We're going down a slightly different direction. This is more of an interview piece with the amazing Leonardo Bortolami. He is the master shipwright of the HMS Victory. His project is to restore such an iconic ship, and if you know who the ship is, great. If you don't, research it. But this is about the journey of the project management and how engineering and bring everything together. Hope you enjoy.
I decided to become a shipwright because I like wooden boats, and my interest is especially in traditional and classical boats and ships. I like the history. I like the fact that they were made to be not as effective, but also to be beautiful. So there's more about beauty in the function than nowadays. I like the idea to be able to restore them and preserve them for the future generations. I think we are just temporary keepers of these objects, so we have to allow future generations to enjoy the beauty of those objects as well. If you start your career as a shipbuilder or a shipwright in general, it's quite difficult to find an employment which can fulfill all aspects of this job, especially because the demand for wooden ships is no more present. There might be some requirements for smaller wooden boats from private clients. But I think at the end of the day, the museum industry is probably the way to go, because obviously there are some conservation requirements for these big ships, and the museums are those only structures which can allow you to do things properly, because you don't need to rush on the conservation principles. You can apply exactly those practices as they were done in the past. I started in boatyards, first of all, who were mainly active for restoring wooden boats for private clients, and then moved into the museum area. And there, obviously, I understood that sometimes working in an environment which is more structured give also better results in terms of outcome for the boat or the ship you are working on. I have the responsibility to deliver the projects, so mainly coordinating, understanding how to complete a certain task safely, obviously taking into account health and safety, but also taking into account the efficiency of the team. So the main responsibility is making sure that we deliver the project or the task, considering the team available and the materials and the restraint in terms of type of a working area, if we are in a visitor area, or perhaps if we need to reduce the impact for the activities that we do on the ship in order to minimize the impact for the visitors, for example. I enjoy that I can plan my activities. I have a degree of freedom. Obviously, I need to take into account the bigger pictures, but also I'm able to do technical choices, but also planning choices. And I have the overall picture is not just coordinating a small area of work, having a fairly big team, because we are aiming to have 18 shipwrights. This gives you the ability to work on multiple areas at the same time and making sure that you progress on various tasks. We have the support of archaeologists and conservators as well. So when we make a choice, it's not based on the only consideration about what is working for the ship in terms of shipwrightry activities, but it's also what is lasting enough to make it acceptable to be installed on the ship, and what is historic accurate as well. Well, day-to-day is probably a fair amount of office work, which is required when you are in a planning position. And there is a series of meetings, again, with the archaeologists, conservators, project manager, and then on-the-ground meetings with the workforce as well to agree a timeline, to agree the way to complete work or to perform some tasks. So it's a good mix. I don't get bored. Yeah. Yes, I do. Obviously, if you become a shipwriter, you hope you can, deal with the hand planers and chisels most of the time. Now that part is long gone, and I believe I see it as a development of my career. So I miss it, but at the same time, I feel that the responsibility and the engagement of my role fulfill what is missing on the other side. That's quite important, I think, because having both a theoretical and a hands-on background allows you to have a conversation and to help your workforce, but also to understand when something maybe can be done differently, and you are able to suggest a different way to do it. Yeah. Well, we have a personal issue, mainly regarding the difficulties of recruiting shipwrights. Shipwright is a dying job, and obviously there's no huge demand, and the schools who are actually providing the market, the job market, are disappearing as well. So it's difficult to get the people who can actually deliver the tasks on this project. One is probably one of the biggest challenge, and also combining the fact that our project is a really long project. We will be working on Victory for a decade or even more. And obviously some tasks are quite the same for a long period, so having the retention of the staff and the shipwrights at the moment that they've been working for a couple of years on the same frames, and obviously is a long way to go, and staff can get bored and can leave the project. So getting the things moving, arranging the rota in order to give a variety during their days is challenging. So when we approach a new area of work, usually we try to do non-destructive checks. First of all, which are visual observation of the ship side or the structure where we are supposed to start works. And then if we see that there are some signs of decay and rot, we start to do further investigation. We use decay detection drill techniques, which are basically measuring some tests which are measuring the resistance of to penetration of the wood, and this gives us some information about the potential rot pockets into the wood. And then if we notice that there are some rot pockets or some decay hidden by paint, we start basically to stick a knife through the structure like in the old days, where you start to do destructive tests. And obviously we start to have a clearer understanding of the extent of rot. Then you move on to the dismantling of the structure to observe what is hidden by those structures, to have a clearer understanding of the wider area. You check also for wet patches and water ingress, or also mold growth, which is usually an indication of some leaks and therefore some problems in the structure. Yeah, there are some more refined ways to do checks, like thermal imaging for understanding where we have water ingress. Usually a wet structure where we have a leak, for example, has a lower temperature because it contains water. But those practices are not always reliable, so sometimes you have to go the old style of punching a knife through the structure. Yeah, well, on Victory, this does happen most of the times because obviously the main target of conservators in a museum environment is try to preserve as much as possible of the ship or the items in general. And this obviously on Victory, for example, clash with the structural side of things. So we have a engineering firm who help us to define exactly how to approach the works and how to complete them. And they often suggest the replacement of the structures when those are too rot or too decayed. And obviously this is a clash with the approach that conservators would like to see applied for the ship. So I think most goes to trying to combine both approaches and come up with a clever solution which can fulfill both sides. And thinking about the box sometimes is required to make it possible. During the project, we subdivided the tasks into work packages. Every work package basically refers to a number of activities that we need to perform on the ship. And those work packages are linked to a VIM, which is the Victory Information Model. It's basically a 3D model of the ship with all structures. So every part of the ship is modeled on that 3D environment. And each structure has also a set of information which is linked to the structure itself in the model. And we record all those information, the type of structure, the material which was used to build it in the first place, but also the new material which we used for building it or restoring it, and when it was done by which team, and we create a database for future generations in this way. The team of engineers who help us to plan for the works, they have a 3D model which is in a software environment where basically they can apply a percentage of strength on each structure and understand exactly how that one behaves, if there is a decay or if perhaps we remove a number of fastenings. And that one informs all the decision making that they do when they guide us through the different stages of work. That model has been created with a combination of photogrammetry and also 3D scanning, which is basically giving us back an accurate 3D model of the ship, where every structure is exactly a copy of the real one. It is super high level, so obviously especially during works, because we know that all timber structures, like Notre Dame, for example, they are in a higher risk phase when there are some restoration and conservation works on them. So obviously, we need to be really careful with all our processes on the scaffolding and inside of the ship during the duration of the work. But also during the works, we take a really careful approach in how we perform the works. So we prop the inside of the ship with a series of propping towers, which are running from the lower level down in the hold up to the upper deck. And this is allowing us to work on the ship side, removing frames without putting in danger the structure of the ship. Obviously, also we are open to the public, so that one enhances immensely also the measures that you have in place for keeping everyone safe. We have a series of meetings which are held by the museum to inform the different stakeholders. And usually we have drawings, 3D models, and we use those tools to get information right to the people. And obviously having an open conversation during meetings is the key to make sure that the people with different backgrounds can understand exactly what you're talking about and make the right choices on their end as well. Yeah, in real time we have a software which collects the reading on the loads of the props which are supporting the ship. So a few years ago the ship has had a new system of support. So from cradles we moved into props, which each one, they are 134. Each one has an individual load cell which can tell us exactly how much tons they are bearing. And basically those tell us exactly how the ship is moving. There are some seasonal fluctuation, change of temperature, moisture, and also we are close to the water and the tides can have an effect on how the loads are spread across the ship. And we are collecting those data every day, every few minutes, just to gather enough information to be able to predict the movements and understand also when we have extraordinary movements which are possibly due to our works or other activities happening on the ship. Yeah. 250 years ago, probably Master Shipwright would have built the ship to his or her specs, and this person was the solely responsible for the delivery of the project. Nowadays, for building a ship like this, probably you would need a team of engineers, and then the shipwright would only oversee the practical side of it. So I think this is the main change, that nowadays we tend to have more layers and also a more varied skill set within a project like this. While before it was mainly one person in charge of doing it with a team of carpenters or shipwrights working for this person. We use similar tools. Obviously, we have machineries which are making our life easier when it comes to shape timbers and speeding up the building process. I have to say that at the time, the building of Victory took 6 years, but now we are delivering a fraction of the building that they did at the time in 10 years. So conserving and restoring things takes longer, but also we have a higher degree of health and safety, and also we are recording. There are so many activities which are, in some way, slowing down for the good the project. So it's quite different. Building something from scratch is much more straightforward and it's easier. Restoring it, trying to preserve as much as possible is more tough. Well, first of all, to go to a boat building school, I think that one is the first step also to give you credibility. But also probably having a project in the background, maybe your own boat or something where you can actually practice and where you can learn your first steps. I think this was my process. I had a number of personal projects which allowed me to gain experience without impacting on someone else's boat as a client or whatever. A big challenge is to get the opportunity to work on historic boats or ships, because obviously there's not a huge industry. This is a quite niche market. And either private boatyards which are working for private clients or museums are not that many that gives you the ability and the opportunity to work on this type of artifacts. Yeah, I think one of the key qualities is the ability to work in a museum environment. So a shipwright can have attention to the details, but cannot perhaps have the conservation background, understanding that you are working on a museum and you can't just rip the structures of the ship completely, but you need to be careful and involve the archaeologists and perhaps also keep other conservators in the loop is the key. And also the ability to work as a traditional shipwright would work, which is different from the skill set that usually someone who does timber work for a commercial boatyard has. So there are a number of boatyards who are actually building with fiberglass, and then they have some interior parts which are made of wood. That one is a different background from the traditional boatyard, who can actually build a wooden boat or a wooden ship. I think it was a family influence, probably. My father had a small wooden boat, and obviously he was bringing myself, for sailing, but also for painting and scraping when it was time for ordinary maintenance. And I think during those days, I understood that there was a kind of cyclical process on a wooden boat, so enjoying the days on the water, but also having to do the hard work. And probably something, was transferred during those days, and I just started to love that, and then I decided that was my path. Obviously, if you are interested in joining the project, there are sometimes there are some positions coming up, both for shipwright, but also as a conservator. So there are opportunities, and it's a long-term project. So feel free to write us if you believe you can be an addition to the project.
I hope you enjoyed the interview. It is something different, but it's all about bringing relevant content, and we'll keep searching for more. Any ideas, please, the socials, the channels to contact us on. We'll be back with some engineering engagement. Next one up is something really exciting. Sure you're all going to like. Thanks very much for listening.